Carl, what have you done?
Think anyone will notice?
Mr. Carl Jackson, right?
Carl Jackson was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. After the sudden death of his mother at the age of 11, he moved between LA and Orlando, Florida, trying to find his way in life.
So I'm clearly a Carl Jackson fan.
Carl Jackson.
Carl Jackson.
Carl Jackson.
Although he was introduced to hard work, faith, and family values, as a struggling teen, he wandered down the path of least resistance, finding himself jailed twice. By the grace of God, he attended an evangelical church and found that there was a better way and accepted Jesus Christ as his Savior.
There's just no fake stuff about Carl Jackson.
Now, on the Salem Podcast Network, Carl has launched on a journey to help people of all races and backgrounds to discover facts of America's true past, as well as realize the benefits of utilizing their God-given gifts and talents, which far outweigh any benefit from a government subsidy or program.
Real dangerous out here. Let's roll, Carl.
Can't go fast.
Redeemed, rehabilitated, and real entertaining. This is the Carl Jackson Podcast.
Hey, hello, and welcome to the Carl Jackson Show podcast. Today, I got a show where we're going to go into a deep dive pretty shortly here. I'm going to be talking about, you guys may have heard the news, or not heard the news. You may have heard the major gaslighting campaign where there is a columnist that is actually comparing Lia Thomas to Jackie Robinson. Yes, you did not just finish smoking crack with Hunter Biden. You heard me correctly. It is insane. It is insulting. It is stupid. And we're going to get into that. But first, let me talk to you about some of the things that are on the tip sheet for today, just so you know some of the headlines are out there that are out there. Democrats are now working to solve the energy crisis that they worked so hard to create. This from the story. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan briefed reporters on Tuesday at the White House about Biden's trip after Secretary Jen Psaki. Jen Psaki announced earlier in that day that she tested positive for COVID. On the energy announcement, Sullivan said Biden was fully aware that most European companies would not follow the U.S. Example in targeting Russian oil and gas exports. Sullivan claimed that Biden's sanctions and energy ban are, quote, increasing the cost on Russia, sharpening the choice for Russia. And he said the president feels very good about where things stand today in terms of the unity and the resolve of Western alliance on sanctions. Okay, so that's one of the things that are in the news. Obviously, prices are still going up in some places. It feels like it's plateaued in others, but the bottom line, Americans are paying much higher prices for energy than they were last year, and this is spilling over to every aspect of our lives. There isn't anyone that is free from the high gas prices that are imposed upon us by the Biden administration and the Democrat Party. I heard some sports guy, please, sports people, stop talking about politics unless you really read in depth about politics. Drives me nuts. It's a local guy here in Orlando, which I like, but he was like, please, people, Joe Biden has nothing to do with gas prices. He doesn't know or doesn't understand that gas prices are based on futures as far as investing is concerned. And so Joe Biden has a lot to do with gas prices. When you decide to import gas or gas and oil from other countries, foreign countries, and not drill right here at home, of course, gas is going to be more expensive. Come on, people. Let's just use a bit of common sense. If we drill, baby, drill right here, we can open up the Keystone XL pipeline, get that gas and oil flowing from Canada. The market would see that. The market would react to that. The price of gas would drop overnight because gas and oil is based on a futures market. Also in the news, Putin is using nuclear weapons. Putin to use nuclear weapons in existential threat. Russian President Vladimir Putin would only use nuclear weapons if he felt his country's very existence was being threatened. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov told CNN. Christian Amanpour said President Putin has raised the threat of using nuclear weapons, and his spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, refused to rule out their use in an interview with me tonight. Okay, so listen, we don't want to go mano, if you will. Nobody wants a nuclear war. No one wants war, period. But I do believe that what Putin is doing is essentially what President Trump was doing. Putin was talking big. And Putin right now, a lot of people believe that he's unpredictable and he may use these nuclear weapons. And indeed, he could. You have to ask yourself the question, did this stop Ronald Reagan from being strong as a president? Did Putin's threat of nuclear weapons stop President Trump from being strong? You can still do things to deter Vladimir Putin. Despite the fact that he has nuclear weapons, and quite frankly, he doesn't want to use them unless he views it as an existential threat. The problem is we got this feckless person in the White House, weak person in the White House, and I think Putin is going to continue to run roughshod until someone gives him an exit ramp that he's satisfied with. But I don't believe that we should be allowing Putin to scare us into allowing him to essentially commit Ukrainian genocide. It's absolutely insane to me. And there are things that I believe the United States should not have done, but that does not excuse the complete and utter evil of the things that Vladimir Putin is doing. Other things in the news, you still have the SCOTUS nominee, Judge Ketanji Brown, who is attempting to run away from her CRT pass. We'll talk about that later. Actually, I'll be talking about that on my radio show tonight. I'll get into that. I think the Republican Party is mishandling this. I don't think they're fighting enough. I don't think they're fighting hard enough. I don't think they're necessarily using the right tactics. I'll talk about that a little later on my radio show. It'll be up on carljacksonshow.com. You can check it out there. Other couple things that matter, and again, we're going to get into this gaslighting when it comes to Lia Thomas being compared to the legend Jackie Robinson, completely insulting and insane. We're going to just break that down. We're going to go through the lefties column. You guys know that Charlie Kirk, our colleague here with the Salem Podcast Network, but also Salem Radio Network, has been at least temporarily suspended from Twitter for basically sharing, if I'm not mistaken, let's just read this. Charlie Kirk was suspended from Twitter on Tuesday after identifying Joe Biden's assistant health secretary in the Department of Health and Human Services as a man. That's because he is. However, is not the only person. Kirk, however, is not the only person in Twitter's crosshairs. You guys know about what happened with the Babylon Bee. They essentially did the same thing, making a joke, calling Rachel Levine Man of the Year. We just live in a crazy society. Governor Kristi Noem is catching up with the times. She's ending CRT mandates in South Dakota. Good for her. I feel like all Republicans should do this, and quite frankly, they should have done this a long time ago. But we will take what we can get. This appears to just be on college campuses. I think it needs to go further than that. If you don't think the left is trying to brainwash your kids, all you have to do is look at Florida and look at what teachers were doing here. Thank God the governor has put a stop to that with the parental rights bill, but you have people going insane. You have people walking out of Disney in support of this. Apparently they're anti-parental rights. Apparently they are pro-child grooming. And I think that's the way Republicans need to frame it here on out. These people that walked out of... Listen, I think we should essentially take a mugshot of all of the people that walked out of Disney. Not only are they replaceable as far as employees, if you go to Disney World, you see that it's a well-oiled machine. So not only are they replaceable, but these are the people that support child grooming. Perhaps we should take a picture of these people so that we know who they are, because all of these people, these so-called employees of Disney that are walking out, are essentially pro-pedophilia, right? They are supporting child grooming. That is sick. That is disgusting. That is evil. And I think they should be treated like despicable people in society. And then if you're just dumb enough to buy into the notion that this is an anti-gay bill, HB 1557, that Governor Ron DeSantis signed, if you're just dumb enough to buy into the narrative, rather that the left is spewing that this is a don't say gay bill, honestly, I don't want to waste too much time with you. You're just an absolute and complete and utter moron. So you're either a moron or a moron, low information voter, or you're a pedophile. One of the three. What else is in the news before we move on? to the deep dive. Oh, this is a scary story. So California abortion legislation could open the door for infanticide. They intend to not only codify the killing of unborn children throughout all 9 months of pregnancy, but to decriminalize killing newborns days or even weeks after birth. So there's new language that's been added to this bill, AB 2223 in California last week that revealed the disturbing news. The proposed legislation would shield a mother from civil and criminal charges for, quote, actions or omissions related to her pregnancy. This includes marriage, stillbirth, or abortion, or perinatal death. This is absolutely insane. And then there's another bill, Senate Bill 1142 in California, that would provide the funding for out-of-state residents. Lawmakers in California have introduced that bill that would set aside taxpayer money to help women residing outside of the state. This is so crazy. To help women residing outside of the state obtain abortions in the state as concerns about significant changes to the U.S. abortion law loom. Oh man, California is such a crazy place. California leadership and the blood that is on the hands of California voters that vote for these lefties out there. I hope you guys repent. You got a lot of blood on your hands. I want to continue. Listen, I don't believe that any state should be left behind when it comes to the Republican Party. I think we should fight like hell to take back every city, every district, every county, every state, and flip it to common sense red states. It makes no sense that we would go this far down the commie train, but we have, unfortunately, with the left, and that's what happens when the left takes over. All right, so now let's get into the story that I've really been wanting to talk about. We will go into a deep dive. I'm just going to break down. I'm going to dissect the column that was written by a lady by the name of Cheryl Cookie. I believe that's her name. It should be Cheryl Cuckoo. But anyway, we will talk about this. The name of the column, Lia Thomas's NCAA championship performance gives women sports a crucial opportunity. Let's go into a deep dive. Okay, so directly from the column, I want to take it right from the jackass's mouth. All right, so Perdue University professor of American Studies, this is who Cheryl Cookie is, otherwise known as Cheryl Cookie on this podcast. So she's a Perdue University professor of American Studies and Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies. All right, this article, as we go through it, will prove that this is one of the subjects that needs to be totally abolished at Perdue University. I'm sorry, as far as college is concerned, there should be science, there should be STEM, right? Science, technology, engineering, math. Obviously, if you want to go to be a lawyer, if you want to go to be a doctor, even though all of these people are becoming these woke social justice warriors too, because they're being brainwashed. But maybe if we eliminate some of these other topics, some of these other areas of study, if you will, in the humanities department, maybe colleges will return to a level of common sense that we've not seen from them in God knows how long. All right, so this columnist goes on to say, or this professor, and I'm just going to dissect this thing bit by bit, so just hold on tight, and I will opine throughout the entire column, but the column starts off as this, and again, this chick ends up comparing Lia Thomas, homeboy swimmer, to Jackie Robinson and breaking the color barrier in the MLB. It's insulting. It's insulting, and it's insanely stupid. Let's get into this. Purdue University professor on Saturday, actually it says, on Saturday, University of Pennsylvania swimmer Lia Thomas placed last in the 100-yard freestyle swim during the NCAA championships. Now, don't think that wasn't a ploy. Don't think that Lia Thomas doesn't know what he is doing when he places last in the 100-yard freestyle. Don't think that he knows all of this all of the chaos, all of the controversy that is happening outside of the pool, all of the things being said about him. Don't think that he is oblivious to this, right? And so, of course, he's going to do what he did several weeks ago when he lost to another transgender student. How convenient. A girl that wanted to be a boy that he lost to. So he loses again. And then that way the argument is stirred up. Oh, see, there are women. There are women that can beat him. All right. So that's what's going on there. Nevertheless, I digress, returning right to the column, ending, and I'm reading what the column says. Okay. So this isn't me, but I want to read this column verbatim. So just brace yourself. Buckle up, Buttercup. Here we go. All right. Ending her career in collegiate swimming. A last place showing at an NCAA swim meet, even a championship one, would not typically garner national headlines. Yet, Thomas has been at the center of controversy regarding her eligibility to compete in women's events. Again, I'm using her. When the columnist does, I will opine. However, this controversy came to an apex last week. Last week at the NCAA's championships, when she became the first openly trans athlete to win a Division I championship in any sport. For anyone who cares about the advancement of sports and women's sports in particular, her win should be celebrated, the columnist says. Now, I gotta tell you guys this, and I know some of you guys are gonna think I'm mean. You're gonna think I'm sexist. You're gonna think I have this thing called toxic masculinity running through my veins, but I'm gonna speak it anyway. And that is, maybe they want more people to watch women's sports, so they just want dudes involved. You ever think about that? Like, seriously, I'm not trying to be mean. It's just true. Like the WNBA, I kid you not. Every year I forget it exists. No offense to the women in the WNBA. I'm sure there's some great basketball players in the WNBA. It's just not my thing. It's not something that I'm going to pay attention to because I don't want to watch. I don't want to watch women play that are very good at fundamentals. I understand the fundamentals of basketball. I understand that it takes, and honestly, I could watch, I do enjoy watching on occasion when I happen to see it, women's college basketball, because it's college. And honestly, the pace is, the pace is phenomenal. The pace is fast. And I understand these people, these ladies have the fundamental principles of basketball down, and they do it very well. I think oftentimes women, when I see them play, at least on the collegiate level, the fundamentals of basketball are seen better there than even in men's play. Women learn the system. They do well within that system. They learn the fundamentals, and it's phenomenal. To that, I give them credit. But when it comes to the WNBA, when somebody graduates from the collegiate level, I have no desire to see them at the professional level. Why? Because I want more. I expect more. I want to see dunking like nobody's business. I want to see some dude jump over some other dude and put his groin right on the top of his head. I'm sorry, sounds disgusting, but that's what I want to see. That's what I want to see. I want to see men do stuff that I know I can't do. Now, I know these women in collegiate basketball, maybe, and the WNBA, I should say, could probably run circles around me in basketball, especially at this day and age. When I was younger, I could ball a little bit, but today, listen, I probably have a heart attack a couple of times up and down the court, no doubt. But the bottom line is, I know that if I practice for a short period of time, I could master the fundamentals of basketball. What I know I can't do is what I see a lot of these men do. I can't pull off stuff that Kevin Durant does. I can't pull off stuff that LeBron James does. I can't pull off stuff that Steph Curry does. I just can't do it. I can't do it. And so, and obviously, hardly anyone else around or in the world can. So we go and watch them. We're willing to watch them. Now, I got to admit, I haven't been watching the NBA for quite some time just because I was tired of all the social justice messages. The LA Lakers are my team. However, I'm on strike until LeBron James retires or is traded. Hopefully, one or the other happens soon because I would like to watch some of my Lakers play, but I'm not doing it while LeBron James is on that team. It's just not happening, Captain. But just something for you to think about. Now, let me go back to the column. Then this lady Cheryl Cookie, or Cheryl Cuckoo for the day, she should be embraced, talking about Lia Thomas in the history of progress that sports represent, and recognized as the trailblazer that she is. Now, again, I'm using she and her because these are the words that the columnist is using. And again, I will opine. We'll break this down literally paragraph by paragraph. All right. Now, here we go. All right, here we go. This is proof positive that colleges and universities, and Purdue used to be a really good one, are worthless pieces of crap right now, unless it's science, technology, engineering, math, law, medicine. But again, even in those issues or areas of study, these people have become full-blown social justice warriors. So it's just a sad state of affairs. All right, so she goes on to say, women's sports are situated at a paradoxical intersection. All right, wherein, and this is, all right, so it's amazing to me when these professors use big words to make very stupid points. All right. She says, wherein sex segregation is upheld through claims of biological difference, yet equality is prefaced on being treated the same and given the same opportunities as men. All right, I always have this question when it comes to these social justice warriors that are talking about, that are on the transgender gender crave, that claim to support LGBTQ barbecue community. I'm sorry, I'm tired of all the letters. It's just stupid. It's just insane. All you're trying to do is to enlarge your victim group, and it's just sickening to me. I don't understand why the lesbian and gay community don't stand up against the transgender community. If transgenderism is true, it means that you can't, or you're not necessarily gay or lesbian. If a woman is attracted to a woman, if a woman dates a woman, if a woman, even though I don't believe in this, marries a woman, then isn't it a lesbian relationship? If a man dates a man, if a man is attracted to a man, isn't that gay? Well, if that person could become anything they want at any given time, are they still lesbian? Are they still gay? This stuff just makes no sense. But this is happening on our college and university campuses, and people are actually paying for this crap. All right. The columnist goes on to say, if we are to change this, talking about, let me just read it over, because all right. So women's sports are situated at a paradoxical intersection wherein sex segregation is upheld through claims of biological difference, yet equality is prefaced on being treated the same and given the same opportunities as men. So she says, if we are to change this, we need to ask some important questions. Okay, what are the important questions? How does one advocate for equitable? See, not equal. Now it's equitable. So she goes from equality is prefaced on being treated the same and given the same opportunities as men, but she pulls a switcheroo. Now she goes straight up left-wing radical. Equitable treatment. So how does one advocate for equitable treatment while also adhering to the notion of biological difference? All right, so that's one question. The second question, if separate is not equal in the case of schools, bathrooms, she's building her case, by the way. If separate is not equal in the case of schools, bathrooms, restaurants, or other social institutions, can separate ever be truly equal in the case of sports? As if men or women are being locked out of sports somehow, except for meritocracy, except for their ability to be able to play. Would gender-based discrimination in sports be eradicated if sports were gender integrated? Let me ask that again. All right, let me read that again. Would gender-based discrimination in sports be eradicated if sports were gender integrated? I'd like to know when she started believing that gender-based discrimination in sports existed. Was it when the left told her to think that way? When did this begin? When did this nonsense begin? I think I have an answer to that. Actually, it's right in the column. But I want you to understand every single one of these questions, and let me just read them again. These would be very dumb arguments, even if real men and real women were allowed to compete in the same races, same competitions. Again, she asks, how does one advocate for equitable treatment while also adhering to the notion of biological difference? This lady doesn't believe in science, yet she will claim that she does afterwards. How does one advocate for equitable treatment while also adhering to the notion of biological difference? Well, when you recognize the biological difference, you can make the adjustments necessary in order to cater to both groups equally. If separate is not equal in the case of schools, bathrooms, restaurants, or other social institutions, can separate ever truly be equal in the case of sports? Man, yes, they can. Would gender-based discrimination in sports be eradicated if sports were gender integrated? And again, I mean, the wording is clever. All right. Gender-based discrimination. No one has ever believed that male sports compared to, male basketball compared to female basketball was segregation. No one believes that, or no one has ever believed that. This is arbitrary morality. This is the left who obviously are secular, who don't believe in the truths of the Bible. I subscribe to biblical truth. Doesn't mean I'm perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I do stuff and I slip up and I mess up, right? But my values, my morals come from what I read in the Bible. Where do their morals come from? Are they just arbitrary? Where do they get the moral authority? Where does this chick have the moral authority to even speak on this stuff? To even make the case that this is gender-based discrimination? Where does she get this moral authority from? College campuses? This is insane. The NCAA approved its first, and these people are disgusting. Before I go on and talk about the NCAA, our governor, Ron DeSantis, did something that I thought was the bomb. And I spoke about this yesterday on my show, but I'll just make a quick mention of it now. And that is the swimmer, and God forgive me, I forget her name, that placed second to Lia Thomas placing first in the NCAA championship the other day. He basically crowned her the winner. She's from, I believe it's Sarasota, Florida, if I'm not mistaken. And listen, he knows that she was cheated. He knows that she was cheated. And so Governor Ron DeSantis, and listen, this is politics, but it's also smart, and it's also the right thing to do. Women have been competing. These girls have been working their butts off, these other swimmers, and competing against women for their entire lives. The girl that finished second literally swam her fastest time ever in, what was it, a 500-yard freestyle race, I believe it was. Swam her fastest time ever. This woman has been, ever since she was a little girl, right, training for this stuff. And then it's taken away because some dude says, I'm a girl, a year ago, after he was ranked 460 something in the world amongst men. And then all of a sudden, hey, I'm a chick, but yes, I still own a penis, and I let it swing around in the female locker room. Come on. Are we really that insane? Are we really that stupid? Have our values, have our morals in the United States of America so eroded that we cannot even recognize what is the basics of right and wrong, basics of sexuality? Obviously, the answer is yes if you're on the left. So the NCAA approved its first policy on the inclusion of trans athletes in collegiate athletics in 2011. The policy allowed, quote, trans female, unquote, student athletes to compete on a women's team if they had been treated with testosterone suppression medication for at least 1 year. So for at least 1 year, seriously, stop and think about this. So you're a dude. You could be on swole. You have bigger bone density. You have bigger or larger lung capacity. Your endurance level is just your endurance level is man, what's the word that I'm looking for? Is more dominant than a woman. Your ability to be able to hold your breath, to be able to endure and handle longer competitions, runs, swims, whatever it may be, because of your lung capacity, you're able to do more than women are able to do. Broader shoulders, bigger hands, longer arms, all of these things. Yes, I'm speaking in general, but this is the vast majority of people when you're talking about men and women. So all of a sudden, they say if you just have 1 year of medical treatment after your body has freaking developed into a man, you can get 1 year of medical treatment and say, hey, I'm a girl. I want to swim with those chicks over there. This is insane. Why are we paying attention to these people? We should be mocking them. These people are silly. Cheryl Cuckoo of Perdue University is silly. She's silly. She should not be teaching any of your kids. Perhaps she should be in an insane asylum. This is just crazy. And the NCAA, these people are just completely immoral. Thank God for people like Ron DeSantis, who understands the cultural politics of the day, but is also willing to do the right thing and stand up for women. Really, you have to blame left-wing feminists. There's no doubt in my mind that this Cheryl Cuckoo, for the sake of this podcast, there's no doubt in my mind that what lefties do, this is what happens when you lack purpose, when there is no God, when all you have is secularism, all you do is try to compete against other people. There's no doubt in my mind that this Cheryl Cuckoo is trying to outdo the last feminist. They want to out-feminist each other. They want to out-left-wing radical, out-left each other, if you will. That's all these people are living for. Who can come up with okay, you came up with a radical idea. I'm a professor. I'm brainwashing kids. What can I say that would put me on the map? That's even more insane. That doesn't make sense, but I could use these big words, paradoxical intersectionality, to make people buy into my BS. So stupid. The article goes on to say the most recent update in January, speaking of the NCAA and the rules, aligns with the changes to the policies of the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee and the International Olympic Committee, which placed the responsibility for eligibility criteria on an individual sport and its governing bodies. All right, the NCAA, the columnist goes on to say, was resistant to adopt USA Swimming's policy, which was among the most restrictive, requiring testosterone suppression for 36 months. So, the U.S. Swimming's policy, which is insane as well, but it is more restrictive than the NCAA, requires testosterone suppression for 36 months as opposed to a year, which the NCAA does. But this doesn't make a bit of a difference either. If you have grown behind people, grown behind men that decide one day that they want to be a woman competing as such. And why is it that the overwhelming amount of cases are men competing as women and not women competing as men? Now, both of these cases are rare, which makes them newsworthy. But a woman born a woman that decided one day that she wanted to be a man. Why are these cases so much more rare? Because the chicks know, even in their gender dysphoria, that they cannot compete against the opposite sex. Some just want to push the envelope. Such changes would have been difficult to consider given collegiate swimmers were in the middle of the competitive season and weeks away from the NCAA championship. So they couldn't get more restrictive in the NCAA. For God's sakes, they have to compete. So who cares if they still act like a man, talk like a man, walk like a man, get horny like a man, get erections like a man, all these kind of things, still fantasize about women. If they want to be women, so be it. I guess if they're a male transgender that thinks he's a female, he's a lesbian. See how silly this stuff gets? Moreover, both the IOCs and the NCAA transgender athlete policies assert an athlete's right to participate in sport without discrimination and express a commitment to diversity, inclusion, and gender equity. So, see, diversity, inclusion, and gender equity trumps common sense. It trumps reality. It trumps science. I wonder what Cheryl Cookie considers herself to be. What is a woman? What does it mean to be a woman? I'd like to know, does Lia Thomas have a vagina? Was Lia Thomas born with a vagina? Can Lia Thomas give birth? I can't believe these are our college campuses. Back in the day, I wanted so badly to attend college. Now I'm glad I didn't. I felt so deprived. I missed out, I guess, on the era when you really went for an education. So I missed out on those days, but obviously I'm not missing anything now. This is totally cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs for me now. I'm sorry, guys. I just going back crazy on this stuff. I just lost my spot. All right. Moreover, both the IOCs and the NCAA's transgender athlete policies assert an athlete's right to participate in sport without discrimination and express a commitment to diversity, inclusion, and gender equity. What about the women that are being discriminated against? So the NCAA isn't even willing to conform to the USA Swimming's policy, right? A superior organization when it comes to athletes. They're not willing to conform to that because they don't want to discriminate against athletes that want to participate in collegiate sports. They don't want to participate or discriminate against the one. They're okay with discriminating. For instance, the swim team, University of Pennsylvania swim team that Lia Thomas is on, they don't want to discriminate against him, but they are willing to discriminate against all the other females on the team. This is what happens when you don't have God as your source of morality. You will just come up with crazy crap. And that's exactly what's happening here. The columnist goes on to say, those who oppose the inclusion of trans women in women's sports argue that trans women have an unfair competitive advantage. And they're not women. They have penises. All right. Lia Thomas has a penis. He has a penis. And that, as a result, they will take away opportunities from cisgender. I'm so tired of these terms. I'm sorry. I know a lot of conservatives use the lingo because they want to feel hip. They want to feel like they're down with the culture. I don't give a damn. It's a boy. It's a girl. It's a male. It's a female. According to the NCAA, these assumptions are not well founded, right? So according to the NCAA, let me read this over again, because now the NCAA is God. They determine who's male and female. So those who oppose the inclusion of trans women in women's sports argue that trans women have an unfair competitive advantage. So dudes pretending to be chicks don't have an unfair competitive advantage when they're playing against women. And that, as a result, they will take away opportunities from heterosexual athletes, right? Or male or female athletes. According to the NCAA, these assumptions are not well founded. Moreover, there is a lack of scientific evidence that conclusively demonstrates a direct link between testosterone and athletic performance. So apparently science has been wrong for thousands and thousands of years. I'm convinced now that on college campuses, what they do is try to educate common sense out of people. They really do. They educate the common sense out of people that come on their campuses, that attend their courses. It's insane. Now the athletic performance. Athletic performance, the columnist says, is influenced by a number of factors, including hormones, but also other things like coaching. So this is why it can't be discriminatory, apparently. A dude swimming against women. Athletic performance is influenced by a number of factors, including hormones, but also other things like coaching and training, psychological makeup of an athlete, access to resources and equipment, among others. So attempts to ban or limit the participation of trans athletes are not based on science, except it is. All of these other resources, all of these other things, everyone can hold. Everyone can have great coaches, male or female. You can have a great coach. Training, you can have great training, right? You can have a great psychological makeup, whether you are a male or a female. You can have access to resources and equipment. And by the way, women are given access to resources and equipment on college campuses, despite the fact that their sports don't do as well as male sports, because guess what? People like male sports better. I mean, there's some sports that I'm sure, like, for instance, I mean, let's be honest, when it comes, think of sport like softball. I actually enjoy watching women's softball. I think it's phenomenal that they can throw the ball that fast underarm. It freaks me out, and it's pretty cool. I like baseball. I like softball. I like watching women's softball. I wouldn't want to watch men's softball. I wouldn't want to watch it. So I'm consistent there. I would not want to watch it if it does exist. I'm sure exists somewhere out on playgrounds. I don't think there's an organized, maybe there is. I don't know. All right. So athletic performance is influenced by all of these things. But the scientific thing that she's refusing, this columnist, this professor's refusing to call science, is the fact that men are simply born stronger than women. And you can have all the training, and you can have all the coaching, you can have all the access to resources you want. A female can, and she will never be able to match the strength of a man. Never. All right, okay. Are there exceptions? Of course there are exceptions. Very rare exceptions. Yes, you can turn on the UFC and see chicks that could beat up a lot of dudes. All right? Yes, that is extremely rare. And these chicks have been training for years and years and years to gain the skills they have. I would even argue in the UFC, you go back to the day when Ronda Rousey was in the UFC and she was pummeling all these females. The females of that day don't have the skills that they have now. So now the females do have the access to the trainers and all this kind of stuff, resources that they have that the males had under the UFC, but they still can't compete with the males because they would get hurt, and they would get hurt pretty quickly. Let me take you to a story. I used to do jiu-jitsu, albeit for a short period of time, but I used to train in jiu-jitsu, and I remember going to the gym one day, and there was this girl that was really good in jiu-jitsu, really good. She was only a blue belt, but she trained with black belts and brown belts all the time. So she was just phenomenal. And there was no doubt she was about to move up from a blue belt to the next level. And then there was this guy that came in about her size, but he was former military. He had just gotten out of the military. He wasn't a buff, big guy, about her size. So he was relatively small for a guy. Not huge bone structure. He was fit. He was trim. But he wasn't some buff monster, and no training whatsoever. This girl's a blue belt, about to progress to the next level. She was really good. And then, he basically taps her out within a minute with no experience whatsoever. Even though she had technique, she couldn't match his strength. Now, I'm sure he knew he learned some basics in the military, because I did overhear him say he did a little wrestling and this and that in the military, but nothing where he was an expert at it, nothing where he had trained extensively at it, but just his sheer force of will, his desire to never give up, and his strength. He ended up dominating her within a minute. She was trying to move and grab and do all. She couldn't do it. She couldn't do it. Now, someone, that's unskilled, maybe doesn't have some wrestling in their background or something like that. These ladies get well trained in jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, MMA. They can jack a lot of men up. All right. So even that, I understand that scenario is a bit different, but still, It just goes to show there's a difference. We all know there's a difference. Why are we letting these people lie to us because they have college degrees? I guess we need to ask that question. Are college degrees a license to lie? Because that's essentially what's happening here. It's essentially what's happening here. This is insane. So she said attempts to ban or limit the participation of trans athletes are not based on science. Instead, they are rooted in societal and cultural definitions of what constitutes gender or what defines a woman. Such questions matter because sports are organized based on the belief of based on the science of natural differences between men and women, and they are sex segregated as a result. Yet, this ultimately leads to the discrimination of athletes like Lia Thomas. Here we go. Now she's going to take it there. The Supreme Court unanimously decided in Brown versus Board of Education. Here we go. All right. I told you, brace yourself, that separate is not equal, and segregation violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. Despite this, sports have been able to operate under a, quote, separate but equal framework upheld in part by the notion. Lefties like using that word. Barack Obama, former president, used to use that all the time when attacking conservatives or conservative ideas or principles. All right, so the notion of biological difference between the sexes. The presumed physical inferiority. I like to see this chick get in a punching match with a dude. All right, let him punch you in the chest, you punch him in the chest. See if there's a physical inferiority difference. I mean, just stupid. The presumed physical inferiority of girls and women historically has justified, legitimated, and excused the unequal treatment of female athletes. The most recent example was the U.S. Soccer Federation. Legal arguments regarding the unequal pay between the men's and women's teams. The Federation claimed there were differences in speed and strength of the men's and women's teams, which partly explained any disparities in pay. The backlash was swift, leading to the then president of the Federation, Carlos Cordero, issuing a public apology. What an idiot. He shouldn't have done it. Sure, he's a nice guy, but he was an idiot. He shouldn't have done it. Here's what I'd like to know. What's the difference in revenue between men's soccer and female soccer? It's like the women's soccer team. I'm sorry, they don't make as much money. They don't bring in as much money as the men. So they don't deserve to get paid the same. They bring in the same amount than they do. This stuff is really simple. Then they do. If they can bring in the same amount of revenues, then they do. Now, I'm not a fan of soccer. I feel like it's such a socialist sport. I don't like the scoring. The way scoring is done in soccer. I don't know how you can end in a tie and all this kind of nonsense. I just can't enjoy that. That just drives me insanely crazy. So I'm just not a soccer person. But I have gone and watched a couple of high school soccer games, both boys and girls. And I'm sorry, I enjoyed the boys soccer much better. It was much more intense. It was much more physical. It was much more fast. So it was more enjoyable. But in the end, I still thought it was kind of sucky because the scoring was just it was just silly to me. All right, now here's the change in sports. This person goes even further. Change in sports doesn't happen overnight, nor is it linear. Major professional sports leagues like MLB and the NFL, here it comes, resisted racially integrating the player rosters. It was not until 1962 that the last NFL team, the Washington Redskins, she calls them the Commanders, I still call them the Redskins, just to be rebellious, would racially integrate. Moreover, athletes of color played in the NFL in the early years of the league only to be excluded as the league developed. Now, this is wrong. All right, I do agree with her there. That is wrong. What she's trying to compare it to, that's wrong. All right, so and then she says, today, athletes like Jackie Robinson, are you for real? Are you for real? Here she goes. Athletes like Jackie Robinson are celebrated as breaking the color barrier in sports, although that narrative often requires sanitizing, simplifying, or rewriting a more complex, nuanced, and contradictory what? So people like Jackie Robinson are celebrated as breaking the color barrier in sports, although that narrative often requires sanitizing, simplifying, or rewriting a more complex, nuance, and contradictory history. Did he break the color barrier in the MLB or not? There remains, though, a cultural investment in celebrating sports first, whether that be Robinson as the first black MLB player, the first openly gay active player in the NBA, the first non-binary U.S. athlete to participate in the Winter Olympics, or the first woman to score in a Power 5 college football game. Many of the athletes who become the first encounter resistance, backlash, and opposition, especially from those who have historically benefited from the status quo in sports. Part of what makes the first story so compelling is the resilience, determination, and love for the sport exhibited by these athletes and their motivation to break down barriers despite the naysayers. Thomas, as the first transgender athlete to win a Division I NCAA championship, deserves to be placed among the other firsts. She, the article says, should be embraced in the history of progress that sports represent and recognized as the trailblazer that she is. No, he should not. No, he should not. He is not a trailblazer. Excuse my language. This pisses me off. I'm so tired of the left piggybacking on the suffrage of black Americans. I hate it. I can't stand it. It frustrates me that blacks that will call me a sellout will buy into this nonsense. This should make you so angry. This lady should be fired from her position, and she should never be allowed to write something this stupid again. This asinine. This lady should not be allowed to be a university professor. It speaks to how low our educational system is in America now. It speaks to how horrible it is. It speaks to how stupid our teachers and our so-called leaders are. How godless, how immoral, how worthless they are in education. This should make everyone upset. This should make everyone mad. Jackie Robinson was born, B-O-R-N in caps, a black man in the Jim Crow era. Do you understand? He was born a man, black man in the Jim Crow era. Not in the Jim Crow South, although he played there, but in the Jim Crow era. Then you have this dude, Lia Thomas. Born a dude, still has a penis swinging around in a ladies' locker room. That was born a white. Now, liberals can't have it both ways either. This just came to mind. Is there white privilege or isn't there? They can't. These people are just complete walking hypocrites. So Lia Thomas was born a white man in a racially unified country, although the left are doing their best to segregate us in that sense. I guarantee you this lady supports CRT. I guarantee you she supports the segregation of blacks and whites again based upon skin color. And all these other firsts, I'm sorry, they don't count. The first openly gay active player, please. When the players came out, NBA, NFL, they were celebrated. They didn't get stuff thrown at them. They didn't get, fans just going absolutely ape-tardo on them. They got praise because we lived in a different society and in different culture. There was nothing there. I'm sorry. There is nothing brave. All these people come out. I'm gay. I'm transsexual. I'm this. I'm that. No. That's not brave because everyone is celebrated now. Everyone is. Whether you agree or not, people come out all the time. It's like, oh my God, who cares? I don't care if you're gay. I don't care if you're lesbian. I don't care if you think you're a dude. Until you start trying to impose and force your views on me or down my throat, then I care. But I don't care. It's none of my business. And the fact that you want to put this stuff in my face shows your lack of insecurity about who you are, who you claim you are. But I'm sorry, these are not real firsts. These people didn't have to worry about being lynched. These people didn't have to worry about drinking out of separate water fountains or eating in separate places, as this moron tries to make the comparison. They didn't have to worry about all that. Maybe they had to be concerned about coming out with their family members. I'm sure that could be tough. But they didn't have to worry about the rest of society when they went out, fearing for their lives, having stuff being thrown at them, names, all types of names being called. I mean, we're so past that, it's not even funny. When people come out as gay, whoop-de-doo, whoop-de-freaking-doo. Keep it to yourself. Who cares? You see heterosexuals? Ooh, I'm heterosexual. I date them. I'm a man. I date a chick. Or vice versa. Nobody cares. And the reason why the reason why this lady would write such a moronic column is because she's insecure about her own thinking. But it's insulting, man. It's insulting to compare a dude pretending to be a female that happens to be a white dude when these people claim, these professors claim, there's structural racism in America. There's white privilege in America, yet this dude should be celebrated on the same level as Jackie Robinson, as if we live in the same times. Was there transgender slavery in America? I mean, am I unaware of that? Were transgenders shipped in from? Maybe there's I don't know. Maybe there's like transgender island somewhere off the coast of Africa. I mean, I don't know. This is silly. And again, this lady is a professor at Perdue University. Don't waste your money. College students, parents, don't waste your money at Perdue University. If a moron like this could teach there, that used to be a very prestigious school, you're in danger everywhere. And black people, you should be ashamed. If you buy into this nonsense and you allow these people to compare a dude pretending to be a chick to black suffrage in America, you're just as much of a moron as this Cheryl Cuckoo lady. You really are. This is disgusting to me. Jackie Robinson didn't have a choice. He was born with black skin. Lia Thomas was born with a penis, and he still has one. All right, guys, I'm going to flip out. So before I do, I'm just going to go ahead and call it quits here. Please subscribe to this podcast wherever podcasts are found. Listen, guys, I need you to share, like this podcast. We're really trying to grow. We're trying to get the message out. You guys, you can message me, Facebook, Carl Jackson Radio, Twitter. I want to talk about things that are important to you as well. So please feel free to do that. But also, again, subscribe, Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, and Rumble. And share this information, share this podcast. If you disagree with me, that's fine. You can be wrong. It's okay. But anyway, listen. I think these lefties are starting to overreach. I really do. They're desperate. They're desperate to hold on to their religion of leftism, and I think it's crumbling. We're going to continue to fight back against the left that are trying to undermine this country, that are trying to destroy our Constitution. It just shouldn't be. All right, so again, you know where to subscribe: Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, Rumble. Follow me on Twitter, please, at Carl Jackson Show, Parler at Carl Jackson Show, Instagram Carl Jackson Show, Facebook Carl Jackson Radio, while they haven't kicked me off yet. Until next time, don't grow weary, doing good, and God bless you.